important job that a forensic anthropologist has is to look at the skulls of human remains to try to differentiate between male and female. One of the features we can look at for male versus female skull is the shape of the eyes, the shape of the orbits. So, in a male skull, we're looking here. The shape on a male skull is going to be more rectangular as opposed to having rounded edges like on a female skull. So you can see the edges here are a lot more rounded. These are more circular than the orbits on the male skull. So here's the male, here's the female. Another thing we can look at is size and shape. If you are comparing two skulls, you can easily see that the male skull is bigger in size than the female skull. If you turn these to the side, you're also going to notice differences in the frontal bone, which is located right here where your forehead is. In a male, it's going to be more kind of sloping up and around, whereas in the female, it's more vertical. So if we compare the two, you can see that difference here. So the female is more vertical, the male's is more sloping backward. So male skulls typically have more prominent features than female skulls. So here's a couple of examples. In a male skull, right underneath where your eyebrows would go is this area here. The brow ridge is going to stick out in males as opposed to females. You're also going to see at the back of the skull, this area here is called the occipital protuberance. It's essentially like a little bit of a bump in the back of your skull. That's going to be more prominent in males. And also this area here, this is called the mastoid process. And in males, you're going to be able to see it very visibly as opposed to females. So let's check out a side-by-side comparison. You can see the brows in the male are way more prominent than that of the female. Okay, if we look at the back of our skulls, it's a little bit harder sometimes to tell where the occipital protuberance is because every skull is different, but also because this skull has an injury in the back, which kind of deters you from seeing those differences a little bit. And our third difference here was our mastoid process, which is this area right here. You'll see very clearly the female's is not as large as this area in the male skull. So the last thing I want to talk about with you guys is the mandible or the jawbone. Again, in males, they tend to have more prominent facial features. So when we look at the mandible from the front, here's our male, here's our female. You're going to notice that the male's mandible is a lot more square, whereas the female's is a lot more rounded. And I can show these to you from the side as well. Okay. The second difference I want you to notice about the mandibles is this angle right here, okay? So this is my male mandible, and you're going to see here, this is very close to a 90-degree angle in men. They tend, again, to have very prominent chins as opposed to females. If you look at this same angle in the female, you're going to notice that it is a lot larger than 90 degrees. So if you see these side by side, you should be able to tell that our female has a wider angle than our male. There are many different ways that we can tell the difference between a male skull and a female skull. We went over some of the easier ones today, the more telling features that will help us make that determination.